Last week, got to dive into some of the highlights for the Nashville Predators and their franchise, what really made the franchise stick. And it is still the doldrums of the summer. So I'm trying to be creative here and bring new perspectives, new storylines that we can really pick out about Nashville to bring everything to life. So I alluded to it last time. This podcast is all about the what ifs. What if things were different in the league? What if Nashville had made different decisions? Some worked to our benefit, some did not. Before I go into this whole list that I have, though, the first what if I would want to share is what if I didn't get into an Uber with Alex Fournette? I never would have been here with Don't Puck with Media, being able to announce that in just a few weeks, we're moving to the Hockey Podcast Network, where we will have even more coverage, more access for listeners to really tune into all of the pods that we have to offer. So while you're listening to this, be sure you're subscribed on YouTube, throw us a like, but get ready to engage with us too on the Hockey Podcast Network. We're really excited. It's been literally hundreds of episodes across everyone here. And even for me, I'm almost up to 15. So thank you everyone who has listened and will continue to listen with us. And anyone maybe that is listening retroactively right now. The support means a lot. So as moving forward to the past about Nashville, I want to talk about how things might have gone very differently with a few different decisions within the team, the league, and I guess player development and injuries that might have occurred and really shifted our future. So, Rick, you can go ahead putting up this first picture. I think that it's most apropos to talk about what happened when the Predators expanded, when they became an expansion team in 1998. I've talked a lot about this as to why Nashville fans have a particular bone to pick with Vegas and somewhat Seattle because of the expansion draft differences. Well, what you're looking at right now, and for anyone who's listening, the expansion draft rules in 1998 were that teams could either protect one goalie, 9 forwards, and 5 defensemen, or 2 goalies, 7 forwards, and 3 defensemen. In 2017, right after Nashville lost the Stanley Cup Finals, they were allowed to protect either 4 defensemen, 4 forwards, and a goalie, or 1 goalie, 5 forwards, and 3 defensemen. That is nearly half the amount of players that were offered for protection. We're talking about you get, at best, a third-line defenseman and a fourth-line forward, and maybe a backup goalie. That's horrendous. That is why Washington won 8 games in their first year in the NHL. That is why St. Louis took forever to develop. That is why Nashville took 13 years to win a Stanley Cup series. And I sit there and I wonder, last week I talked all about how Nashville took a long time to develop as a hockey town. They almost moved. The team was not good. People were not going to the games. We developed an identity of resilience, of unity within the city, really getting behind the team. But what if it didn't have to take 18 years? What if Nashville was able to start making the playoffs by year 4 and actually fighting, and maybe by year 5 or 6, winning a series? I don't think that the expectation should be that an expansion team makes the cup in year 1 the way Vegas did, but it also shouldn't be what we had to go through. You shouldn't have to make a team so bad that they risk moving away as an expansion team. That is like a clear overcorrection by the NHL when they loosened the expansion draft rules. So I sit there and I wonder, and I don't know how different it would have been in 1998. I'm not going to go back and look at the expansion draft of every team and apply this year's rules to 98. That would be a very fun and very data-intensive exercise. And if I had more time, I absolutely would love to do it. But I think that, hands down, that would have changed everything. We probably wouldn't have gotten to draft Shea Weber. Okay, but that's probably because we would have been a better team and had a worse draft pick. David Legoan still would have been our first pick in franchise history. And the rest, who the hell knows? Like, who really knows? And that's one of those things that all you can do is sit there and wonder if we had a different foundation. Now, maybe teams would have gotten more accustomed to Nashville being in the league, feeling familiar with our presence and not kind of mocking us for being a team in the South. But in some ways, I do believe that a lot of the criticism that we receive for no one caring is not necessarily because we were in the South, but because the product was bad. Last weekend, I was actually talking with a friend who's from Carolina, grew up in the Research Triangle near Raleigh, Durham. And I said, congrats on the Canes. I don't know if you're a fan. And he says, it's funny. I wasn't really until 2019 when they started getting good. That's the year that they upset the Capitals, took them in game 7. I think that was in double overtime. And then everyone knew from there that they were going to be a little bit of a juggernaut. I think most people were surprised. It actually took them 7 years to win the cup. Either way, what I took away from that conversation is anyone will root for a team if there's a good product. But if you make the product so damn bad, it's going to be impossible to grow that. So I sat there, Carolina they've actually won 2 cups, so they have had a lot more success, but they're also in a very non-traditional market. And this friend even acknowledged that people were not showing up until they were good. And then suddenly everyone was a hockey fan. It's a little bit similar for Nashville, but there was a lot more of the focus on, hey, we don't even want to move. Like, please, please, please keep the team here. So that is what if number 1. The second what if, and Rick, we can go to the next picture, is many years later. Nashville, okay, we've committed to our expansion draft. We have made some okay first round picks. Nothing has really stuck. I would say we had some competitive playoff series against Detroit and San Jose, but we were never able to really escape beyond to make those go past 6. And as Nashville's coming into their own, Ryan Suter and Shea Weber are these stalwart, homegrown defensemen, one of the best D pairings in the NHL, and young. And then, as we all sort of suspected, surmised, but hoped wouldn't happen, Ryan Suter chose to go play in Minnesota, where he has spent most of the rest of his career with a couple one-year contracts bouncing around since. That is when Nashville felt like we've now had enough longevity where we're losing guys that we built. Last time I talked about how exciting it was when Paul Kariya and Peter Forsberg came. And we were able to really bring in big names that had made their names before Nashville existed as a team. Now, though, I remember where I was. I was in the Green Hills movie theater leaving and saw the notification that Ryan Suter had officially signed an 8-year or 10-year deal with the Wild. And it did feel like a gut punch. It felt like, why would you leave us and Shea Weber? This was after, though, the Shea Weber offer sheet from the Flyers. We were heavily committed to him. And, salary cap was definitely tighter. We probably could not have offered Ryan Suter and still spend on the offense as much as we needed to, but it still sucked. And it very much felt like he chose Minnesota over us. And I think there was still a lot of truths to that. So much so that every time he still touches the puck when he plays in Nashville, he does get booed. And I'm mixed on this. I really am, because he did a lot to bring us into relevance, into contention. He was there for our first playoff series win, but then he was not there the way that Shea Weber and then Roman Josi and others were to take us to the next level. He's not the only player that gets booed. There's Jamey Vesey as well. Jamey Vesey is most known for getting drafted by Nashville, playing the rest of his 3 years at Harvard, and when he graduated college, deciding not to actually sign his contract with Nashville, explore free agency. And I would say that is deserving of boos, and even Forsberg's illegal hits on Vesey that led to a multi-game suspension were absolutely worth it. Jokes on Vesey. He ended up kind of being a journeyman nobody in the NHL after, a year or two playing in the second and third lines for the Rangers. So I do sit back and think that if we had been able to maintain that core, that D core, with Suter and Weber, while still having drafted Yossi and Ekholm and Ellis and Seth Jones and Sam Girard, and those guys, Seth Jones, Girard, Yossi, Ekholm, and Ellis, were all drafted in that early 2010s, late 2000s, and would have coalesced around the same time. But because Nashville had so much talent there and had not been drafting well at the forward position, that's when we saw Seth Jones go for Ryan Johansson, and Sam Girard was moved as a part of it was a 3-team trade. I think that's how we ended up getting Duchesne into Nashville. Would have been a very interesting D-man group if you could see 6 of some of the most electric defensive players all on at once. Maybe Rinne would have looked even better because every single one of his blue line pairs would have been able to protect the crease that much more and be able to score. That was what was so exciting. Everyone actually but Ryan Suter, of those defensemen that I've listed, has a potential to have a nice slap shot, one-timer, or even create. Ekholm has grown into that. He definitely was not a scorer. Suter is the type of defenseman who would score a couple goals a year, and his shot is soft. So, again, it hurt, but not as much as some other players. It's tantalizing to think about how good our defense would have been if we had been able to maintain him. That was in 2012. In 2013, we had a what-if go our way. And that leads us to the next picture here, Rick, which is a very young man wearing a Washington Capitals jersey named Philip Forsberg. I've talked multiple times, I'm sure, on the podcast about the boon of that trade, how impactful it was for Nashville. It really is not to be understated, though, that this is one of those what-ifs that actually changed our franchise. He has become our best natural goal scorer in franchise history, multiple 40-goal seasons. He does not want to leave Nashville. He's raising his family there. He's Swedish. He's very proud to be in Nashville. Several of his closest friends are actually guys that are in the NFL who are originally from Nashville, namely George Kittle. And he just really embraces the attitude of the city. How could we have known that that would become the case in 2013? We didn't. But in 2013, we weren't going to need Martin Erat. Let's put it that way. We were competing. We were making the playoffs. But getting a guy like Forsberg for Erat, who was at this point very washed up, was just one of those no-brainers, but to the point where we didn't know how immediate it would be. Well, in 2015, Forsberg scored a playoff hat trick. The trade was in 2013. If we hadn't drafted any forwards with his potency, his longevity, his youth, remember, Paul Kariya, Peter Forsberg, Scott Hartnell we did draft, but he didn't end up lasting with us forever before he goes to Philly. A lot of the guys that we'd been drafting that stayed were good, not great. Patrick Hornqvist being one of them, but he was their big body in front of the net. Didn't have the natural shot, the skating abilities that Forsberg brought. This changed the way that we were able to play our offense. Our power plays. He has a vicious one-timer. I know that he's not Stamkos or Ovechkin with their ability to kind of sit in their office, but if you haven't watched him on the power play, you know that, or you don't know, and Nashville fans do know, that where he likes to stand is kind of right outside the circle, and he likes to bring in, he doesn't go for true one-timers all the time. A lot of what he likes is a wrister where he can kind of bring the puck in real fast and then snap it. And it has become lethal. He's able to, anytime he's on the ice for the power play, you just expect him to shoot, and sometimes got even frustrated when he's not shooting more, because that is how good his shot is, and the power play has struggled a lot since then. I think Washington fans could be sitting there and wondering, what if we had Forsberg, Ovechkin, Oshie now, or I guess in their heyday, because now, having just gone and gotten Tuck, among others, Washington has become a little bit more of a force, and Forsberg is still playing really good hockey. So had he still managed to stay in their organization, their what-ifs are really interesting. They still won a cup, though, and we didn't. like there. So maybe the what ifs don't matter, but he has certainly brought us into the relevance and allowed us to be able to really compete for a Stanley Cup. Now, the next what if is the next picture here, and it's a lot sadder. Nashville winning their first Stanley Cup series in 2011, that was electric, but the year before they should have won. And that was against Chicago in 2010, and Chicago ended up winning the cup. And I remember that we beat the dog shit out of Chicago, I think, in game one. Like, we managed to go into Chicago, get a 2 or 3 goal win. I think that might have even been our first game one we had won in franchise history. I mean, I felt good. I was really excited that we were finally going to take down this division rival. Chicago hadn't been that good for long. They only had been good the last 2 to 3 years since they got Patrick Kane. But they were they were in freaking nuisance. Corey Crawford was already ripping it. And, the story writes itself. We all know Chicago ends up winning the series. My what if, though, is what if we didn't blow a 4-3 lead with Marian Hossa serving a 5-minute major, allowing Chicago to score in the last minute of the game and then and then have Marian Hossa come back and score the overtime winner. That was one of those true gut punches where you saw veteran play, Hall of Fame play, still stick up to show you that we were still the new kids on the block. We didn't have the killer closeout mentality. And it kind of gave this elusive flavor of, we can compete, we are good, but we still don't know what it's like to actually close out a series, to beat a really good team when you're not necessarily supposed to. I think it was also in this series, in the elimination game, in game 6. And this was just when you knew it wasn't our year. But there was a face-off in the neutral zone, and Chicago dumps it into Nashville's end, and it goes off of Rene, who, one of the reasons that he was lauded so much in 2017 was his ability to get out of the net, play the puck, and make it really hard for a dump and chase. Well, the puck comes in off a defenseman's leg. So it takes a bizarre hop. Rene is already out of the net, and Chicago scored from a neutral zone dump. And that was one of those where, you're watching an elimination game and you just know it's over. Like, the puck isn't going your way. Suddenly you've lost control of the series. And so that was a heart-crushing moment. So was watching Marian Hossa take us in overtime in Chicago. And it just felt like games 5 and 6, we had them. We absolutely had them. But we let it slip. And I'll give an honorable mention in 2015 when we had a 3-0 lead against the Hawks in game 1. And then Scott Darling comes in because Corey Crawford gets pulled. And then we lost in overtime, double overtime. And that was, again, we had a really good team. We couldn't close them out. And we were still wondering, when are we actually going to make a run? And when are we going to beat Chicago? I talked about it last time. We did get our comeuppance in 2017, and then Chicago hasn't even won a playoff series since, let alone made it in the last 10 years. So, joke's on them in the end. And they've gone through more coaches than they have playoff wins probably since 2015, 16. So, I'm perfectly happy to watch them fumble that, even with Connor Bedard getting all of his money. They are still not competing at all. The next what if is the next picture that you'd be looking at here. And this one was a similarly rough one. So if Nashville had managed to beat Chicago in 2010, I think it would have changed a little bit of the dynamic on how much longer would Trotz have maybe been able to stick around as coach. He had a few more years before he brought in Lavalette. Would he have been able to be that killer? Would more free agents have come? Would we have just seen that we were capable of playing better? Doesn't matter when it came to 2016. 2016, at its time, was definitely the best Nashville team that we'd ever seen and had. And the picture that you're looking at here is when Nashville scored in triple overtime to beat San Jose in game game 3 at home to make it a 2-1 series lead for San Jose, and then they would win in overtime in game 4. San Jose was probably the top 2 team for Nashville to hate while I was growing up. So in the 2000s and the early teens, Detroit and San Jose were fierce. We lost to both of them multiple times in the playoffs. Every time we were playing either in the Pavilion or at the Joe, just felt like we were cursed. And anytime, like there was a game I remember watching, it was a late Friday night or Saturday night puck drop, and Nashville got the first 15 shots on goal against San Jose in the first period. They're up 1-0. San Jose's first shot on goal is a goal. And that was just, again, one of those damn, we are still not there. We can pull together really good hockey, but they still have a Hall of Fame lineup that's able to get that punch in without worrying about it. For Nashville, it was the law of large numbers. We needed to make the entire game go our way. We didn't have the Joe Thorntons and the Setaguchis and the Pavelskis that were capable of scoring very quickly. It's obviously San Jose is very different now. It's a fully new team. It's actually fun to watch their youth and root for them. And I have nothing but respect for the way that San Jose played. They were tough. They were physical, but not really a dirty team. So that's why they scared the daylights out of us. And when we managed to draw them even in 4, that was sick. It was like this, oh my God, we're back in the series. It's 2-2. We lose on the road. In 5, we come back home for game 6. That's when Mika Salamaki gets his overtime winner, saves the season, go to San Jose and get absolutely blanked 5-0. Pecorine breaks his stick in pissed off frustration, hitting it against the pipes. And little did we know that would be a kind of a foreshadowing of some of how Pecorine ended up playing in some of his biggest games ever. And that one, that stung. That one really, really stung. To sit there, not even wanting to watch the end of Game 7, knowing how bad we had just been shellacked. And it felt a little bit, again, like we got teased. We've now won. At that point, we had won 3 first-round series. So winning and getting out of the first round wasn't a prize anymore. It wasn't something to celebrate. Now we actually had to find a way to get out of there, and we couldn't. And given how good that team was, it felt nearly impossible to think of, what do we have to do differently? A lot of things happen differently in the next couple months. Now, had we beaten San Jose, that's where you do have to start wondering what wouldn't have happened. That was Trotz's last year. What if Peter Laviolette had come in and, Trotz had just left. But that summer was also the PK Subban Shea Weber trade in 2016. Had we beaten San Jose, would we have advanced to the conference finals? Would we have made that trade? I don't think so. I think that if you make the conference finals, you are considered a juggernaut. And if you are not seeing significant roster change due to free agency, injury, or retirement, then you shouldn't be making crazy big changes. Look at the squads from this year. You got Montreal finally getting back out there, Carolina winning it all, Colorado and Vegas, and neither of them. Well, Colorado actually had to because of salary issues, and they got worse. What would the dynamic have been for Nashville? What would it have meant for Poile? Would we have seen the longevity? What decision would Nashville have gone into? Because simultaneously, that trade for PK Subban changed things for the better, but it also changed things for the worse, in the sense that he didn't end up sticking around that long with us. Our defense played, like the Golden State Warriors 3-point shooting, is in that everyone was contributing to goals, that our defensemen could lead an attack and also get back and cover. And that was awesome and exciting. And obviously we went to the Cup. But it also gave us this hope that we could kind of just keep latching on to that 1 year instead of fully accept a rebuild much earlier than we are sort of in the position of doing now. Again, 9 years ago, and I still feel like we're paying the price for a lot of our stasis since then, in our inertia, in our lack of willingness to accept the reality of being a pretty bad hockey team. The next year, as I just mentioned, it was a lot better in the sense that we went to the cup. It was not a good regular season. We had 94 points, snuck into the playoffs in the last day of the season, and that is when we were faced with injuries. So we can go to the next picture, Rick, and the picture that we're looking at here is Kevin Fiala on a stretcher. In game 1 against St. Louis, Kevin Fiala goes into the boards really awkwardly, and his leg goes perpendicularly, and he just breaks his femur. One, it was terrible to watch. Nashville still ended up winning this game, but you start wondering, like, are we going to have the depth to even finish this series, finish another series? And this is one where, okay, the team was good. We don't want to look back and think we wasted it or lost the ability to compete because of injuries and depth. We had just swept Chicago, so the vibes were not, hey, we're the 94-point team. It was more, we're playing with house money. We know we can be good. Was 4 games in Chicago a fluke? Fans probably still thought so until we started beating the crap out of St. Louis, and Pecorine stood on his head for that entire series. But had Kevin Fiala stayed healthy, had we not had to maybe call up Pontus Aberg and Freddie Gaudreau, quick little shout out to my now friend Joe, who's coworker. Freddie Gaudreau is his brother-in-law, I've recently learned. So very exciting to kind of have that Nashville lore linked into my workplace now. But Kevin Fiala's injury was painful to watch and really hard to see how the team would respond. No one else had really had a major injury yet during this playoff run. So you thought, okay, there's a chance that we'd be okay. But then if you go to the next picture, you can actually see a little bit more. And this is a quote because Ryan Johansson in the next series against Anaheim has one of his worst injuries of his career. He almost loses his leg to some sort of like a blood clotting issue where his leg starts swelling up so quickly that he needed to get surgery immediately. And the injury was caused by Ryan Kesler. And the quote, it's sort of cut off here. I'll read it out. It just blows my mind. I don't know what's going through his head and how his friends or family and friends watching him play. I don't know how you can cheer for that. Doesn't make sense how he plays the game. I'm just trying to win and play hockey, and it sucks when you have to pull a stick out during your shift. Ryan Kesler is my nominee for the most hated player from a Nashville Predators standpoint. From when he was in Anaheim and when he was in Vancouver, he has always been an absolutely dirty nuisance. And it got even worse when he was in Anaheim. When he was in Vancouver in 2012, we played them in the second round. And there was a moment that really pissed me off. I think it was game 3 against the Canucks in Nashville. Game goes to overtime. Penalty gets called. Ryan Kesler draws the penalty for hooking. When you look at the replay, it was clear that he was holding the stick. And you can't change a penalty call in the NHL. It's frustrating. Vancouver would score on the power play, and that was the end of the game. And that was just the sort of player that he was. He would always be in the faceoff circle. He's hitting your nuts, the cup, whatever the player's protection have with his stick. And he was all to the point where Ryan Johansson speaks publicly to the media to talk about how dirty of a player he is. And I don't understand how his friends and family can root for him. That was like my hell yeah, Ryan Johansson. I'm glad you're speaking up. Like this reaffirms everything that we had already thought. Corey Perry was second in command of the most hated Nashville Predators by the Nashville Predators on that same team as well. And the rivalry with Anaheim was fierce. So you just have to sit there and wonder, like, what if Johansson was healthy? What if Fiala was healthy? And when we go into play Pittsburgh in games 5 and 6, when we got shut out both times, what if we had actually been able to have a potent offense that wasn't relying on exclusively broken plays and some luck? Because there was even comments during that playoff run. The amount of Milwaukee Admirals bags that were in the locker room was shocking to people because of how many injuries we had to dig into. That was the summer. the Jofa line, Johansson, Forsberg, and Arvidsson, became a thing because of how explosive they were, and then immediately got pulled from us with Johansson's injury. Would we have won the cup? I don't know. But I know that it would have been a lot more entertaining. And what's even still crazier, though, is it wasn't the biggest what if of that year. And I'm going to finish with that one. The next what if I want to discuss is one that we haven't seen the full consequences of yet. That's the next picture here. And right now you're looking at a very talented young man named Porter Martone, drafted 6th overall by the Philadelphia Flyers in 2025, right after the Nashville Predators took Brady Martin at 5th overall. This was one of those, like, what the hell are you doing, Barry Trotz moments that probably inked the decision that he needed to be gone by the next season, because Porter Martone was, everyone pretty much thought, ceiling was higher, should have been picked well before Brady Martin. And I feel bad for Brady Martin because he actually is decent player that people are expecting to be like a second line center pretty soon in the league, but his ceiling just isn't as high. Meanwhile, Martone gets eliminated from college hockey, playing for Michigan State, and immediately goes to Philadelphia, helps them on their playoff run, and is an electric contributor in his first ever NHL games. And you sit there and think, look, we had Forsberg because we traded for him, but how on earth are we now 13 years later and we still haven't been able to draft that game changer? We might have in the last couple of years. There's been a lot of positive buzz that Nashville, I'm blanking on the hockey account right now on Twitter, that did actually just rank Nashville as having the best pool of prospects in the entire league, which is really, really exciting to finally hear after so many years of Poile trading away picks and prospects, which were necessary when we were competing, but we're really back in a position of, hey, we've got a young roster. We've got a lot of young prospects. We've got a lot of draft picks. We're finally playing with our own money. We are in control of the decisions that we have. But what if we already had Porter Martone? What would Chris McFarland have done this offseason to complement? Who would he have not signed? Which players would not have, I guess, been making the roster? And maybe even the bigger question, would we have made the playoffs? We ended up only missing it by a couple of points. Our offense just could not get it together, and our defense was poor. Saros had a lot of saves. Save percentage was not super high. It's just because we gave up so many shots that he had so many saves. I don't know, and I am very envious of the Flyers, and I wish them well with Porter Martone. I now just have to pray and hope that Brady Martin is really going to play into his role. But I feel a lot more comfortable around the position for Nashville because of this offseason, because of the way we've drafted in the last few years, and a lot of the way that our young talent is just gelling together. And some of them at Michigan State right now are, this what if doesn't kill me. This one is not the, Tom Brady got drafted and I was going to take him one spot ahead when he was drafted 199th and you lost generational talent. There's no reason. It's not like we lost the lottery when Celebrini or Bedard were the first overall picks. I'd say another honorable mention in that capacity is, what if the Blackhawks didn't win the lottery following the Kyle Beach suspension and punishments that should have been levied against the Hawks? Even what would the Blackhawks have looked like? How much worse could they have been? I actually was terrified that Bedard would have this McDavid impact and suddenly the Hawks would be immediately competing. Even Celebrini made that for the Sharks, and somehow still the Hawks are not. So maybe this is the world righting itself and karma coming full circle. But that's just my hopes. This is the what if that we still haven't seen how it could play out. And that leads to the very last what if, which is, if any Nashville Predators fan knows that this would have been the one coming, this picture here of Colton Sissons punching the puck behind Matt Murray, only for it to be called off by about a second. The way that this play transpired is one of those I'll never forget. Forsberg takes a shot from Matt Murray's right. The referee is in the trapezoid behind Matt Murray, also on the right. The the way that this shot proceeds is Matt Murray does not have the puck. Like, it's not, oh, it's in his jersey or his glove for a second. It dribbles behind him on the left. So his body, he's now turning. He's looking for the puck. The ref can't see it because he's behind the red line. He's in the trapezoid, right by the trapezoid, I should say, and can't see because of Matt Murray's body. The puck dribbles wide open into the blue crease, as you can see here, where Sissons dives forward and just pokes the puck into the net. And the storyline of every single one of this Stanley Cup was whoever scored first, the floodgates usually opened after. From a neutral viewer standpoint, it probably wasn't the best Stanley Cup to watch at all because none of the games were close except for game one, which still ended up being a regulation game. Like, none of them were close. Nashville lost 6-0 in game 2. They beat the daylights out of Pittsburgh in games 3 and 4. Game 5 was another big blowout in Pittsburgh where Rene got pulled again. So game 6 in Nashville, it was must win. As they say, it's not a series till a home team loses a game. It's 0-0 at this point in the second period. This puck should have gone in, but the referee blew the whistle right before because he couldn't see the puck. And there is a raging debate as to whether he blew the whistle correctly at the right time. He did not wait very long. He's not wrong that you are supposed to blow the whistle if you can't see the puck. But, you sit there and you think, like, how many times has there been a scrum where the puck is not moving? The ref can see it, but they are also supposed to blow the whistle if the puck is at a perfect standstill. The amount of times that it's been blown, like after a long time of holding the puck, even for a goalie, where players are still trying to jam from under their cover. And this was one that really shook Nashville. And even hockey reporters and people covering it acknowledged that this is such a painful way to lose. And they lost 2-0 in this game and lost the cup in this game. The second goal was an empty netter. The first goal came by Hornqvist in the last 2 minutes, which was just killer. That our own guy that we sent to Pittsburgh and for James Neal with Nick Smalling, and he is the one that got that final punch against us. So yeah, what if Colton Sissons scored? I think Nashville would have gone on and forced Game 7 without a question in my mind. Would we have won Game 7? I don't know. But I don't think there's a more direct what if that had tangible consequences to our franchise than this singular play. The rest that I've talked about were injuries that could have led to these plays, or guys that left that could have contributed to these moments, or guys that came who helped us create this moment, like Forsberg, who had the shot. It wasn't going in on its own. And it's all in the timing of when that puck didn't dribble fast enough to get poked in by Sissons in a clear, uncontested attempt, and it got called off. And the boos rained down, and our hearts broke, and we just continue to look at this as when we do win a Stanley Cup, this one will finally be a little etched out of our memory some. But until we do, it remains this elusive beast. The goal that got away, the moment that got away, the opportunity to kind of finish the deal as the underdog team of the year, the underdog team of the NHL, for everyone who had hated on us, the ability to take out Sidney Crosby. Don't even get me started on he played a dirty series physically against us, slamming Subban's head into the ice multiple times, throwing a water bottle on the ice, not getting called for, unsportsmanlike, scoring with a goal got scored on that shift, on that break. Just the things that built up for that deflating moment. And it's the trade-off that we'll continue to make as sports fans. But when you get that close and you feel like you're about to reach the mountain and then the rug gets pulled out from under you, all you can think about is what if. All you can think about is what if. But hey, what if Chris McFarland turns our team into a lethal competitor? What if we actually might even fight for the 3rd seed in the division, not just the wild card. What if Saros has his best year ever? These are all what ifs that could go our way and really elevate this rebuild. And that's what I'm hoping for. That's what we should all be hoping for. We're about 7 weeks away from the regular season, just under 50 days, and it can't come fast enough. So if you're still listening here, please feel free, give us a follow for Don't Puck with Media on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify. Get ready to listen to us on the Hockey Podcast Network. Can't wait to join you all there soon. And really can't wait to see what the next what ifs might be in store. Hopefully all good ones for Nashville Predators. Thanks, everybody, and I'll catch you next time.
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die.